for Flabonga, Monthrothacube, with Dale and Tony breaking all the rules, talking tech, biz, and straight up chaos. Quick fire guests, oh yeah, we slay those.
Love that jingle.
So good.
Good afternoon. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is Flabonga Monthrothacube. With me today, I've got my co-host
Tony Stevenson.
and our epic guest.
Leigh Stallard.
What up, Lee? How's it going?
Oh, good. Thanks, Dale. How are you?
Very, very good. I always forget to do this because I kind of know you already. For the people who don't know you, we all don't know who you is. What do you do, and why do you do it?
What do I do? I try to tidy up the little bit of the world between SaaS accounting companies and accountants, because it's quite messy and it's quite noisy. And from experiences in my career, which we can go into, it feels like that part of the process isn't quite working properly. And the value that is sort of promised by accounting tech, that we'd all be collaborating with clients and clients would all be more successful, etc., hasn't really come to pass, I don't think, at the scale that it was promised. And so I think there's work to be done there to tidy it up. So I do that through a mix of consulting to app vendors and digital video asset production as well, but very specifically around accounting and accounting tech.
Okay, that's pretty cool. How did the idea come about to do that? Like, what inspired you or motivated you to do that?
In 2019, I joined Soldo, expense management app. 6 months into that, no one was spending on expenses anymore because no one could go out because of COVID. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of the accounting team, and I inherited an accounting channel of about 150 partners, which we still wanted to try and grow with, but it was huge and it was a massive undertaking. And so what I started doing is recording little videos to present different use cases via LinkedIn. So we talk about how to use it as an alternative to petty cash rather than just like when you're out on expenses or whatever. So that was quite useful to sort of promote those different use cases, but also was as strategic structural assets in the onboarding process, because there were only so many times in the day I could go through and explain the pricing and welcome to the partner program and all that sort of stuff. So I popped it in the video and automated it and said, look, when a new partner comes on board, they get this video, they get explained what it does, how it works, how they can apply it. And then once they move forward from that, then we can engage more and I can spend the time with it. So that's where the video stuff came from originally. It was about efficiency and trying to expand my capabilities as an account manager whilst also offering a great onboarding experience.
Okay, so you've been in business doing kind of film and cinematography kind of stuff for the last 6 years, right?
Yeah, roughly. It started as a bit of a side hustle and then grew in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Of all the people you filmed and interacted with and engaged with in our industry, who had the most mess ups? Who had the most outtakes, edits, filthy mouth because they couldn't get the lines out? Who was the best at that?
I have filmed and edited a lot of stuff for the Digital Disruptors, and their podcast is it's great. The format is the sort of, it reminds me a bit of the Big Breakfast format, right, where it's just the sort of zoo format. It's just a bit of a chat and a bit of a laugh, but it can be a bit difficult to edit that at times. So so yeah, they're fun to work with. I'm
going to be mean. You got Ryan, Indy, and John. Who messes up the most?
John.
Obviously. I asked the question. I knew the answer, but I just wanted to hear it from your mouth.
No, they're great. I love John to bits. He's got a lot of stuff to share. Right, he knows so much from so many different perspectives, and it all comes out. And sometimes you've got to go, well, it's all great stuff, but we can't fit it all into an hour, so we're gonna have to lose some of that somewhere. But yeah,
I'm gonna say hello to Sam Green. Long-time friend of the show. He's watching.
Hey, Sam.
Thanks for listening, Sam. Feel free to ask Lee stupid questions because I'm going to ask him a silly one now. Lee, if you were a biscuit, what kind of biscuit would you be that accurately portrays your personality and why? But don't just pick your favorite biscuit.
I think the Fox's Golden Crunch is my favorite biscuit and represents me quite well. Might appear a little bit tough on the outside or a little bit reserved, but quite soft in the middle.
All right, that's a good answer.
On the spot, that's the best I can come up with. Sounds a bit cheesy, but that's what I go with.
When you're eating your biscuits, do you have a hot beverage of choice, like a tea or a coffee?
I don't think I eat biscuits without something to dunk them in, to be honest with you. Very few biscuits do it for me are just dry. You know, they've got to be dunked in most
Moist
cases.
biscuit.
Yeah, fig rolls, they're all right sometimes. They're not very good at dunking, so I'll tolerate them. But they're more like cakes, aren't they, really?
They're not really a biscuit. I
Yeah.
don't think they're a biscuit. Also, in America, they call them fig Newtons, which is
Wow.
daft.
You ever dunked a
So-
Jaffa cake?
I don't really drink hot drinks, to be honest. Occasionally
No,
coffee.
wow.
Yeah.
I can't dunk in coffee, only in tea.
But you do drink coffee.
I do drink coffee. Yeah, I was spoilt with coffee. I never liked coffee until I started at Zero, and they put in one of those really fancy coffee machines. And because it's a Kiwi company, there's a big coffee culture there, and I slowly got weaned onto it and became a coffee snob within a couple of years.
I always felt a little bit like we had missed out a bit in those days because they actually had an actual barista in the Wellington office, didn't they? Who was like employed part-time doing their accounting exams and part-time to actually just make everybody coffee.
Yeah.
Instead of Ash just like crushing out the latte art whenever he felt like it. Yeah. Leads us nicely onto the coffee question, which feels like let's get them all in early. So if we can all agree that like your local artisan or maybe in-house coffee machine is the best choice, but that isn't available for some reason or other, and we are stuck in a world where we have to choose from the major coffee chains. Which one do you gravitate towards, and which one will you actively avoid? Jog on uncaffeinated.
Costa Roll tend to go towards a British company. And the white.
This is where we part ways. So you and Dale are off down Costa Close, and I'm heading towards Starbucks Street.
Right. Okay.
Coffees are available, and that's just
yeah.
my personal taste.
Greg's coffees are awful though. You get what you pay for with Greg's coffees.
I don't know about that. I think they've
I've never tried a Greg's coffee.
I had one a little while ago, and I was sort of like expecting it to taste like plastic and it would be awful, and actually it was better than I thought it was going to be. But yeah. And Greg's is the okay, fair.
Greg's is the one to avoid.
And McDonald's, I think all coffee snobs can agree when answers this question, actually pretty decent for the price point.
Yeah.
It's okay if you're in there anyway, right? You're never going to swing by McDonald's just for a coffee, I don't think. But if
I disagree with that.
I've done it.
£1.50 versus £4 for a flat white, or even sometimes £5. Like, it's hard when you factor in when you adjust the multiple for the cost. It is.
That's true. I have to try and avoid
that.
When I was on the road in sales, I ended up tucking into McDonald's all the time because it was free Wi-Fi, free parking. They're everywhere, and just put on a load of weight, which was not good. So I try to condition myself not to do that anymore.
Happens the best of us.
I've had years where I'll go I'm not going to eat McDonald's this year, and not done it for a whole year, which has been good. Yeah, but also people do like this.
We should probably ask you some business questions since this is on LinkedIn and we're all business people doing business things.
Yeah.
What is it you enjoy about working in the finance/accounting/tech space?
There's sort of two levels to it. I think the community that we've got in our little world seems great. Although I've not really worked in any other industry, so I don't know how it compares. But if you need to solve something, you can pretty much find someone that will help you out with it, right? Like we've got a really, really good group of people, I think, that want to help each other. So that's great. The sort of meta level of it, I suppose, is that there's a direct route to actually make a difference to people and do meaningful work when you're working around accounting. Because if you support accountants and support clients, then businesses get better. And that was always the dream that Rod used to talk about, was better schools and hospitals, because if you help accountants to help their clients, they get more successful, they pay more tax, they hire more people, assuming that the government allocate that correctly, which is probably more of a risky assumption now, but we all sort of prosper. And you can see a direct link to that working in this space, whereas I'm not sure you can in a lot of other industries. So that's the sort of grandiose reason, I suppose.
Okay, and you mentioned like a gap or an untidy part between SaaS and accountancy. Can you drill into that a bit more? What do you mean by untidy? What doesn't quite work? What doesn't quite mesh?
There's a few elements. I think there's the amount of stuff in the market is a challenge, because if you're digital advisor and you need to solve a problem for a client, you've probably got about 6 or 7 different stock management apps, and you've got God knows how many payment apps. And where do you start with that? How do you know that you're recommending the best solution to your client? I think at a certain point you have to give up and say, well, I don't know I'm recommending the best, but this is good enough and I know it, so I'll go with it, right? That's a challenge. But what SaaS vendors have figured out largely is how to sell really effectively. There's a playbook. If you've got money, you can throw it at it, and you can generate leads and customers. I hesitate to say that's the easy bit, because a lot of people still do struggle with it a little bit. It's not exactly a paint by numbers exercise, but there are playbooks, and it's, you can follow best practice. What happens after that, though, is someone's bought a product, and it's kind of like a gym membership, because you buy it, psychologically you tick the box, okay, I'm moving towards solving this problem. But a lot of times the customers, so accounting firms or businesses, they need to do the work, right? They need to actually implement this stuff and turn it into a workflow and incorporate it into things they think about day to day. And that's really, really, really hard. And you can't just throw money at that, I don't think, because you're talking about behavior change and people changing their habits. It's really, really difficult. And that is an area that I think is significantly underinvested in. And if it did have more investment, if there were more playbooks for it, people would use the tech, they'd get the benefit from it. SaaS vendors could grow a little bit more quickly because they're not sort of hobbled by people that are stuck with empty subscriptions. And the whole world gets a bit better. It might be a rose-tinted view, but I think we can get, we can move forwards with it. So those are some of the biggest challenges that I see for the space at the minute.
Yeah, fair enough. Just going to jump into the comments very quickly. Mark Howson, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who technically wrote the AI jingle, Fit Like Dudes. Can't believe I missed the intro music. Sorry, Mark. You did miss it.
Who knows? We might play it again sometime.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I can. Do I have the ability to do that?
Maybe next week.
Next week. Well, definitely next week. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right, Leigh. I think that it is. It's been ringing around my brain like that. What we were talking about with Richard Sargent a few weeks back about this sort of the relative chaos going on with inside an accounting firm, but keeping firm versus the like the rigid kind of, we want you to work in this prescribed fashion that sits in the vendor side, and about how that plays out in real life. And I think it's still, even though we've been kind of at this for a while, technology wise, it's still not prevalent across the industry. Like folks like Dale, right? You do what you do, right? And you're tasked with that specific thing around technology. And a lot of firms either don't want to take that track or can't afford to take that track because they're not of a size that supports being able to have a technology person to deal with this type of stuff. So it is a perpetual challenge and a head scratcher. And I think when you get into it with folks that have been around this world for a while, you always kind of come back to the same point, which is anyone who solves that will be a very, very rich person, right? So I think it is a perpetual challenge, that sort of like once we've signed or said yes, then like that's the beginning of the next phase, not like the end point of the journey.
And that's a uniquely SaaS problem, I think, because if you go back a couple of decades and you kind of bring in a practice management solution or whatever, or quite a big chunky bit of software for a practice, you're going to sign a 2 or 3 year contract, right? So you sort of, your feet are to the fire straight away because you can't just cancel and get out of it. So you're like, actually, we've sort of signed this for 10, 20 grand. There's a bit of pain to doing that, so we better get on and sort it out. Whereas 20 quid a month dripping out, or even a couple of hundred quid a month dripping out for a big practice, it can sort of get lost in the weeds a bit, can't it? And the pressure's not on, I think, to solve it necessarily.
Yeah, and I think if you sort of look beyond like mid-market and uppers, we used to free implementation as well. Like that's sort of half of the course, right? In the SaaS world, or in the smaller end of the SaaS world, and inherently that leads to like, well, if it's free, I'm less that same thing, right? You've got an inbuilt accountability. If you've paid 1,500 quid a day to have somebody come out for a week to implement the software, you're probably going to make the room for that and make sure that everyone's aware that that's what we spent on it, and that this is the chance. We don't want to spend another 7.5 grand on a week's worth of somebody coming in. So you inevitably kind of engage with it as a population, sort of less. What's the word I'm looking for? Less readily, because it's free. So it just, it's like, well, we can have it again if we need it, type of thing. So I don't think that helps either.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm interested, like, do you think is there like a point that you look at in that process, or that kind of messiness problem, whatever you want to call it, that you think this is the bit where it starts to go wrong, like this is the thing that's missing, or the thing that is there that shouldn't be, or that moment in time where you think like, oh, it's kind of gone well so far and now I can see it starting to slide south again?
It's always going to vary, but I think a very common one is that point immediately after the sale, because when you're going through the sales process, you're trying to put if you look at the challenger sale, you're trying to create positive tension throughout the deal, right? You're trying to create a reason for them to move and give them the motivation to take it to the next step. As soon as they sign, all of that tension disappears. And what you end up with sometimes is that person that's just bought, so the tension's gone from them. They feel psychologically, okay, we've made a positive step here and we're probably further along solving the problem than they actually are. So they're sort of relieved. And then they get handed over to a customer success manager who's a new person, probably doesn't have a great deal of relationship and leverage, that they've then got to try and get them through probably what is the hardest part of that, of embedding it in behavior change. And where the salesperson has got a lot of tools at their disposal, so discounts or promos, or they can pull on lots of different resources, the CSM doesn't have any of that, or has very little of it. And so if you lose momentum at that point, it's very, very, very challenging to get it back again. So I think that's a critical area in that journey, that if we can make that a bit better or keep that momentum going, then the outcomes further down the process will be better. So that's definitely a key area.
Okay, so you've identified the problem. I think Tony and I both agree. You're right, that kind of adoption thereafter the sale, and you help consult on that. How does video come into it? Because in my head, they're two very different things, but you're making them work somehow. How do they come together? How does video help with onboarding and client success? How does that work?
So there's a couple of areas of it. Like I wouldn't want to give the impression that we're saying, well, we'll just put video in and it'll solve it, because it's definitely not the case, right?
Yep.
What we can do though is use video resources and assets to provide on-demand support for that person. So if they're keen and want to go for it, and it's 2 a.m. or whatever, and they just want to keep moving, and there's not someone on the line, the resources they can go and find, right? They're out there all the time. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is that you'll find, if you go into most SaaS vendors, that there's customer success managers that have answered the same question 1,000 times.
Yep. How
do I invite a user? How do I do this? How do I do that? If you can take some of that pain off them and provide that still in a really detailed and intricate and kind of beautiful experience for the customer, but it's in a video format rather than the same person saying the same thing just in a different call, you can free up a load of time for those people to then go and spend and actually consult with their customers, right? And say, okay, now tell me about your workflow. Let's do a workflow mapping session. Let's figure all these things out so that they can deliver their best work, I suppose. So that's an element to it as well. Also, if we can codify a really solid onboarding process through video assets and use animation to demonstrate how data flows and things like that, we can explain complex things very quickly. But also, if we've got that playbook documented in video form, that's quite easy to then train other people on it as well. So if you have third-party implementation partners that are implementing your products on your behalf, you can give them those assets and say, right, okay, I'll pass this on to the client, and it'll all be nice and standard. Or if you've got new CSMs coming in, you can get them up to speed quicker, again, with those same like onboarding video assets. So there's a few different ways, but it's more about building up a toolkit to make other people more efficient, I think, than it actually being the solution itself.
That's pretty good.
And like you said, you could probably yeah, there's always going to be exceptions to the rules, right? There's always the 10% of like I've got this one client that's different to everything else. But actually, when you sit down and, if you had available that information of like, what are the 10 things that we get asked that make up 90% or 80% of those challenges on the onboarding things, and lay those out. But we have we call it the flying start at Free Agents, like a widget that pops up on the app, which basically says like, these are the things that we know that you're going to need to do in order to get get to a good place with the app, which is stuff like connect your bank feed, raise your first invoice, capture something on Smart Capture, like these types of things, so that we kind of have seen that and know that those are the things largely that cause people to engage well with the software, and not kind of go, oh, I don't get this doesn't make any sense, when they start to see those things appearing, and be able to also build the confidence of ticking those things off. And there's no reason why most apps should be able to build out those 10, however many it is, dozen things that form that the basis of that onboarding workflow. And then the next steps of that workflow of like, how do I put a client on, how do I access, how do I collaborate with the client on this, like how do I get data flowing, there's those kind of things that start to bring the thing to life.
I think there's another point of tension within app vendors, though, and software companies, in that on one hand, you want to do good things that people value and offer great value and experiences. On the other hand, you want to scale. And so there's that inherent tension. Someone could come up with an idea and say, well, we could do this for someone, it will help them on board quicker. But then someone across from them in the table in the SLT meeting room will say, well, that doesn't scale. Well, we can't go down that path because we can't grow it. So part of the vision here is saying, well, actually, if we can take away a bunch of work from the best people, they can then go and do stuff that doesn't scale for their top prospects and top customers, figure out what works and what doesn't work. So you can come up with that list, like you said there, Tony, for everybody else. Like they can go, actually, we found that this works for these firms and all that sort of stuff. And then you can figure out how to digitize that and then serve it to everybody else. So you can kind of free up the capacity to learn and expand and make these things better over time. Again, by kind of like relying on these better processes. So yeah, like coming up with that list of 10 is kind of critical, and refining it over time too.
I'm happy to be corrected on this following point. I think one of the difficulties a lot of SaaS providers face, specifically fintech, is people. And what I mean by that is, you just mentioned like codifying things and making a methodology that seems like it will work and could be scalable. But I know from experience speaking to other people who've got a similar role to me in the accounting space, they will deal with the vendors very differently than me. And I'll give an example. Some firms will go, okay, got a great relationship with the vendor, off you go, onboarding, might even let them speak to clients. And then other firms have got no, you can't talk to my client no matter what. I want you to train my staff to do it. Does that make sense? And those things are worlds apart in terms of resource and planning. And so you come in with we think this is going to work, and XYZ firms are like, nah, we're going to do it this way. And you kind of placate them a little bit because you still want the business, you want to have a relationship with them. I can imagine that's quite difficult, just the versatility of like different accounting firms and how they operate.
So when I was managing sales teams, we used to segment our accounting partners based on two axes of a matrix, right? One axis is opportunity size. So how big is, like, how many clients have they got? It's kind of like cutthroat, but like business is business, and there's only so many hours in the day, and you've got to prioritize the best opportunities, right? So what's the opportunity in there? If that's high, we can do a bit more, and we can sort of bend around the rules a little bit and maybe customize things for them, but there's lots of opportunity there. The other axis then is intent. So how keen are they to actually move and do something? Because if you've got someone that's got a massive opportunity, but they're not bothered, is it worth spending the time with them? Probably not. If you've got someone that's high opportunity, high intent, then yeah, like kind of break the process if you need to make it work. And so I think from SaaS vendors, it's about being really clear on that and understanding these guys have got a really awkward process, but they're high intent and they have high opportunity. So it's kind of makes it worth us accommodating. Yeah. If not, then don't. I think that's an element.
Picking up on something you just said, you said you manage sales teams. And this is a bit of a non sequitur question. Do you think good salespeople make good sales managers?
No. I'm probably, being self-critical, probably a good example of that. I was relatively good at the sales, and I think I was okay at the coaching side of things.
Okay.
But I was just terrible at keeping on people with their forecasts and their numbers and stuff. I just didn't like the difficult conversations and shied away from them a little bit. It was a bit of a learning that I've had on reflection, which is not a good trait for a sales manager at all. So I don't think they necessarily do make good managers. It's a very different skill set.
Yeah. And did you ever get promoted from a sales role to a manager role in a business you worked in? So then you had to end up managing people you worked alongside, because I can imagine that's difficult.
Slightly. So I got promoted at zero from a senior account manager to a sales manager, but it was a different team. So it was the internal account managers who were at the time probably slightly junior to the senior account managers anyway. So stepping across there was sort of fine, because I was already slightly more senior because I was in the title where I was a senior account manager. So that wasn't too bad. But if that was an element as well, that would be quite difficult. Zero is a weird one though. It's got a different culture. I've never really found it anywhere else. So I don't know how that would translate in other businesses.
Okay. What advice would you give to anyone trying to sell to accountants or bookkeepers? You've done it. You've managed sales teams. What advice would you give them?
You have to try and understand them first, and like you said earlier on, they always have different processes and different priorities and things like that. Assuming that you've been successful selling to one accountant doesn't mean that you can sell to loads of others. You have to take the time to listen. You have to understand that just because logically in your head your product has solved a problem for one of their clients, it doesn't necessarily logically flow that of course they would then want to roll it out to everybody. That's a massive common mistake that people make. Like logic, well, it's worked for one, why wouldn't it work for the? Why wouldn't you roll it out? It just doesn't work. Incentives and discounts typically don't work. There will for some, but it's rarely a motivator. But probably the biggest thing I would share is what I learned from folks like Darren Glanville and Glenn Foster, which is just be quiet and listen. Understand a set of good questions that you can ask, because people feel like they've got to talk to demonstrate credibility. They feel like they've got to earn a place at the table when they're talking to an accountant, because it's a prestigious profession and all that sort of stuff. They feel like they need to waffle to justify the time. You don't. You can justify your expertise with asking good questions, and then be quiet and just let them talk. And that's probably the best thing. And then from there, understand what those things mean. And it takes time, and it takes training, and it takes speaking to people that are actually being in the space to know what it means. But yeah, there's a few things there, but that's what I'd suggest. Beyond that, it'd be a bit more specific, like what's the app do? What does the accountant do? How do you then make something relevant for that? But as broad rules of thumb, those would be what I'd go with.
I think that's very good advice. And I would say good general advice for sales as well. I agree with you. A lot of people think salespeople have to talk or have a silver tongue. The best salespeople I've met are the ones who ask good questions. Questions are relative to their industry, the people they're selling to, and you're right. You show that you're knowledgeable by asking questions that are based on your knowledge and understanding of that business. So 100% agree.
Yeah,
100%.
And look at that empathy with the challenges that they face, and understanding why what seems like the obvious pathway probably isn't the obvious pathway, right? For most accountancy firms, bookkeeping firms aren't necessarily geared up in a way to just seamlessly integrate software. It is a huge ask, and it's a huge ask that quite often doesn't have a centralized point of push within the firm, depending on the type of firm and the setup of the firm that you're operating with. I think in the world that I work in, I speak with a lot of people that are vendors that are starting out in this world, and they quite often start out in the same fashion when they have seen the sort of look through of one accountant represents 500 businesses that I can kind of sell through to, and that approach just doesn't work in a transactional fashion like that. You have to view it as a partnership, and I think that quite early in those journeys, the bar for which someone in our profession will push a software product to their clients is extremely high, and like you said, not really influenced by kind of discounts or incentives in order to do that. It's influenced by how much does this potentially affect my credibility if A, I can't support them on it, and B, like it turns out that, you know, 2 months after spending a bunch of time doing it, they go bust, or, you know, it turns out there's some major problem with the software, or they get bought, or, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, there's a really high bar for opening up to their black book. And I think that new vendors to the space who've not been through that process before tend to assume the bar is really low, and actually it's not. It's extremely high. They're not software accountants and bookkeepers are not software sellers primarily, software resellers primarily. They're you know, business advisors and trusted ones at that, right?
Just going to jump in with the comments. The questions from Kevin Lord, 2 of them. Go for the first one, nice and easy. Kevin Lord, I agree with all this, Leigh. Do you think leaders and investors / VCs of SaaS companies understand that this all takes time?
Some do, but I think a lot of them are guilty of seeing the successes that people like Xero, Dext, QuickBooks, Sage have had 10, 15 years ago. And then when they're building out the VCs probably have that impression that it's a quick growth channel and it's a quick way to scale because you're selling one to many. So it feels quite efficient. It feels efficient to throw it on a presentation slide on an investor deck as well. You go, actually, we've got this massive TAM. We only need to engage with 100 people and we've got access to 10,000 clients or whatever it adds up to.
Sorry, for the layman's, what's TAM?
TAM, total addressable market. So if I sell pens, everybody that needs a pen is my total addressable market in theory. Yep. So people get sold on the dream that they can scale as quickly as those guys. And that isn't the case because they aren't those guys. They don't necessarily have the funding and the backing, but the space is a lot more mature is sort of the word. It's moved on a lot. So back when I started, I could go to an accounting firm and I say, hey, I'm calling from Xero. We do this thing. We've got a free partner program. No issue to sign up. We'll give you some free education, a couple of clients with a discount. Do you want to go have a go on it? It's free. No downside. People go, yeah, why not? I'll sign up as a partner, which then creates the other problem, which they don't do anything. But getting them onto the partner program, no issue. Now, there's about 40 or 50 different partner programs that people could potentially join. And so the threshold, just like you're talking about, Tony, the threshold for recommending things to clients is quite high. Even for joining these things or giving a salesperson the time of day, the threshold has gone up because you just get drowned with it.
And they all want to join. They want to make you join their Slack channel. I haven't got time to join all them Slack channels.
Exactly. And so I think people see the numbers and think, great, if we do X, Y, Z, we'll get access to all these clients and it'll be there. But to Kevin's question, it does take time. Trust is a huge part of this process, and that isn't really something that can be fast tracked very quickly.
Kevin's also got another follow-up question. It's a nice long one. Let's see if I can read it. Actually, Tony, can I put you on the spot? Do you reckon you can read this one? I'm being mean.
Can I read? Is that the question?
No, because it's a really long one. I know I'm going to mess up, so I figured you could do it. Kevin Lord.
Interested in the panels here. Hi, Kev. My meeting before this FM, an internal barrier the director spoke to me about was how hard it is to get people to do work that is non-billable, and the pressure that revenue is under in his firm. His other example was he could very quickly tell me that I assume TO is turnover of his firms almost to the exact pounds, but not the number of clients that he has. So to shorten that, I think is a barrier doing non-chargeable work, and where does that come from? So this is a really interesting one, right? So I sat on a panel around round table of, it's actually vendors and accountants. And I won't say any of the names because that's not the right thing to do. Eminent people within our space, and watched the accountants debate for at least 20 minutes how they got round the challenge of having non-chargeable time related to this type of stuff on timesheets, right? So every firm has a different approach to time tracking, right? Some don't do it, some do it very, very into minute scale. I'm probably most sit in the middle somewhere where they use it as an indicative piece, but understand the limitations of it. And there's an inherent game within each set of those timesheets of what's acceptable, what numbers are we aiming for, do they represent what do they represent, and and how does that filter up into the conversations that happen around the numbers that those timesheets represent. And it was so fascinating because I'd never really given the consideration to it before, but they just sat and debated about how they did it, and some did it on the sort of like it got attributed in minute drops to different clients. Some did it as like a particular type of BD because that then had a different underlying like meaning within the firm's like reporting structure, which meant that it didn't affect revenue because it still fed into it because it was deemed to be part of a revenue generating activity in some form or other. And there was like I said, 5 or 6 different opinions on how this took place, and a few people, oh, that's a really good idea. I think that might work in our firm. That's not how we're doing it. But it was clear there was a very real problem, particularly in the larger firm space, of like, we have a recovery rate that we want to, or chargeability rate that we need to adhere to, and this is a problem within that rate because if we're dedicating lots of time to this unchargeable people's work, then yeah. So I think that that is a challenge clearly, because these were big firms that would you would expect this to be something that they'd sort of got a pretty comfortable, like a pretty consistent approach to, and actually that was clearly not the case. Like it all came out in the round of like, how much time can we give to this? We've got a budget sum for it, but I can imagine it's a cultural thing, right?
I'm going to share my opinion if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my main focus on Kevin's statement/question is the bit in brackets at the end. His other example was he could very quickly tell me the turnover of his firms, almost exact pound, but not the number of clients he has. Now, this might be me being big-headed or completely wrong. If you can figure out your turnover, but you don't know how many clients you have, how can you figure out profitability and margin on those clients on an individual level? Can you? Is that even possible? Or are you doing it on some kind of broader, wider metric where you think, okay, presumably I'm spending this many hours on this kind of client, so in theory my recovery is this. I don't think it's detailed enough. If you don't know how many clients you have, you don't know how much margin or profit you're making on those clients, and you should know, in my opinion, how much money, profit or margin you're making on each individual client, so which in theory would eliminate the need for timesheets.
There's some element
very biased.
There's some element of semantics in it, right? So like I remember having this conversation with a firm back in the day, and it was like, I don't know how many clients I've got because I don't know how you would define a client. So if I've got one limited company and 4 directors within that company, and we do personal tax for all 4 of those, and we do some some wealth planning for 2 of them, and we do pension work individually for 1 of them, and each of them have got like some sort of side JV thing. Is that one client that has got a bunch of work, or is that like 7 or 8 different clients because we've got 7 or 8 different engagements? So there's like an element of like defining what is that client, and it's not necessarily quite as simple as just 5
in your example.
Yeah, but if you've got a definition of it, then it's easier to do, right? But that's not always the case.
If I'm a builder and I got 3 customers and I got 4 different jobs, I still got 3 customers.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I might have to do a bathroom renovation. I might have to do a kitchen renovation. It's still the same customer.
Yes. Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Sorry.
Dale, you asked a bit ago about like mistakes that sales teams make when they're dealing with accountants. One big mistake that people make is thinking that they've got accountants figured out and making massive generalizations about what accountants do and don't do.
I'm well aware.
I try very hard to not do that, but generally I've found that accounting firms are very strange little businesses, and I mean that with affection. But I used to joke with my sales team that if you got in front of a group of directors at an accounting firm, you've basically got a board of CFOs, because of how the structure works, right? You become an accountant, you get promoted, you become a director. You've got a load of accountants on the top table. So the one who has the most Twitter followers will be the marketing one, typically. And so then it's very hard to have a marketing conversation. And to Kevin's point, if you look around at typical businesses, there's very few where the majority of the people are all on production. Like even if you go into a car manufacturing place, not everybody's on the production line. You've got a marketing team, they're not all chargeable work. And it's very, very odd in a like a kind way to find a business that does that, where everyone is that pressure to be productive. I don't have an easy answer for that, but there's a cultural thing there with firms. And I think that's getting better. Like, better. Like, I don't want to have a judgment on it, whether it's bad or good, but it's changing. And now we're starting to see only recently firms hiring BDMs and salespeople. It's like, which other businesses do you find that don't have salespeople? It's
BDMs,
kind of odd.
I think COOs as well. I think that should be a role in more accounting firms. Someone who's completely non-chargeable but can actually get like the strategy and processes in place. They're not out winning work. They're not out doing work. Because again, I'm sorry, piggybacking what your comment, Lee. Just like I agree. It's the first time I've experienced where a senior leader, I mean proper C-suite level, is still doing chargeable work, and it has to be them that does it. I've never experienced it before in any industry, and I've worked in other sectors. You're right. That's one thing that's quite bizarre, obscure in the accounting space.
It's the quirks of the profession or dealing with them.
I hope he won't mind me saying this because he's quite open about this, and I've heard him use it on a number of occasions as an example about himself, is Will Farnell. And Will said that one of the things that he had to do in his own firm was get out of the way because he was still holding on to things that he shouldn't have been holding on to. And I think he said it was, I think I'm right in saying, Will, and I hope this is correct, that it was year 8 of Farnell Clark. And as the managing partner, Will was still doing the post. So like when the post came into the business, Will was opening it to make sure that it went to the right people and stuff. And like, and he's quite open about the fact he was like, when we actually stood back I stood back and reflected on it, like kind of at the time, and then later on, I realised how ludicrous that was, but also how normal it felt to me at the time to be doing it, because I didn't want to pass that on, because I just hadn't got a system that I trusted that was going to make sure that everything went to the right place, and that, you know, I could ultimately be accountable if a check arrived and it needed to be dealt with, or, you know, an inquiry letter arrived and we didn't miss a deadline to respond to it, kind of thing. And I was the point of failure in there and the bottleneck, and it was, you know, causing problems for people because often he was out winning work, and anyone that knows Will knows how busy he is and how much he wants to help the profession by, you know, working with other firms and being out there winning work and stuff. So, you know, that's a good example of you know, of how these things can easily seem sensible when Will was, you know, setting Farnell Clark up in the first place, and, you know, and probably slightly less sensible 8 years down the track. I think it was 8 years, but I could be wrong. So apologies, Will, if you're listening and I've got that wrong.
He's not listening. He's busy running his firm.
Yeah.
Basically, anyone who's on this right now is on their lunch break. Kevin, no jokes aside, Kevin, thank you for those questions and comments. They're really, really good. That goes great discussion. I'm going to bring it back to the silliness because we have been too serious for too long. When we had Kevin on, because he's been on the show, I asked him about his background in his office. So Lee, you've got some bobbleheads going on over there. Which bobbleheads are these?
I've got a huge collection of bobbleheads. I'll try and rotate them. So on here, this is the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Ah, okay.
That's my favourite film.
It's a good film.
In the middle there, it might not be immediately visible. That's Grimace, the McDonald's mascot.
Can't see Grimace. Also, what is Grimace? No one knows.
No.
Hamburger, the nugget food.
I've got Hamburglar somewhere as well.
But what actually is Grimace? What is it?
I don't even know.
I think it's a nugget that fell behind the frying machine. It's been left there for like several years and then turned purple, and that's what Grimace is.
I think that's a good shout. The McDonald's toys used to be amazing though. I remember when I was a kid. It was a different league to what it is now. You got the little pull back and go racing cars with all the different McDonald's characters in.
Much more basic or educational nowadays, aren't they?
Going into politics. Sorry, go on.
McDonald's are the biggest toy distributors globally.
Really?
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. You buy a Happy Meal, you get a toy. Like, yeah.
It's like the same thing of Lego being the biggest tire manufacturer in the world, isn't it? same sort of fact.
Yeah.
Also, McDonald's, one of like the biggest commercial landowners in the world as well. Like, most of their revenue from actual land, not their food, which is pretty cool. And sorry, who's the third bobblehead? Sorry,
that is Ted Lasso.
Is it?
Ted.
Would you mind taking it down? Because I can't see it. I didn't look like Ted Lasso from here. Do you mind?
Yeah, bring Ted down.
Such a great show. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I see. Yep. Fantastic. One of my favorite shows.
My coach telling me not to be a goldfish and all that sort of stuff if I mess up with things, you know.
I didn't realize the guy who plays Roy Kent. He's the guy who wrote it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until like after I watched it. Yeah, like he wrote it.
He's a great writer. If you like his sense of humor, there's another show on Apple TV Plus, right? So it's just another subscription. But if you get the trial for it, there's a show called Shrinking on there, which is really good.
With the guy from How I Met Your Mother. Yeah.
Yes.
And Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford is great in it. He's just like a grumpy old man, which is how he appears in most of his interviews. But he's excellent. It's a really good show.
Tony, if you haven't watched it, it's amazing.
No, I haven't. Despite the fact that Harrison Ford is just like obscenely rich because of there's the famous story about him asking for like royalty share, didn't he, from Star Wars back in the day or something like that. I'm sure there was. Yeah, he's like, I don't want paying. I just want 1% of future revenue or something like that.
Holy smokes! First time comment from the Richard Spoffoff.
Oh.
New managing partner of Creston Reeves.
Dale, can I cast your mind back to the conversation we had just before we came on air? Can I recount it?
Go on then. Yeah.
I said, I think we should give Richard a shout out because Richard's just been made managing director of KR. And Dale went, no, not going to start being nice to him now.
Yeah.
With love.
Well, also,
with love.
He's obviously watching it on delay because he's answering questions that we asked half an hour ago. So Richard Spoffoff, if anyone wants to know, the new managing partner of Creston Reeves, Coffee Choice, Richard Spoffoff, BSc, BFP, FCA, Starbucks spend more on milk than coffee and more on health insurance than milk. So he doesn't like Starbucks, basically. Can I put words in his mouth? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll see. I feel like he might be closest to us than... Because that's not a response to the coffee question. That's a response to the McDonald's toy distribution question, isn't it? Yeah. So maybe he's pretty close.
Have you guys heard the Starbucks as a bank theory?
No. So it's the gift cards, is it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So they hold so much money on their balance sheet through gift cards that they could technically be a bank. And it's sort of theorized that that's maybe part of their strategy, but they don't need to hold the funds like a bank would to give the deposits back because it's already sort of spent money. So they've got so much of this cash that they can plow into expansion. It's sort of the thinking is that they're probably more aligned to a bank in some ways than a coffee shop
because people buy them and then never use them.
Exactly.
I need to go back to one comment. We skipped Kevin. Sorry, Kevin. He put another comment on there. Going back, I said, Kevin Lord, I agree, Tony. Uncle Hamish gives this as his number 2 advice for accountants. Appoint yourself or someone else as CEO of the business, not doing the work.
It's a really interesting point on this. And I think what's interesting is as more sort of VC money pours into the accounting profession and you see firms get acquired more and things like that. And as you see some of the firms like Sleek and Mazuma that are coming at this more from a subscription and a SaaS point of view, I think it's really interesting how that particular cat will disrupt all of the pigeons of the profession. As people think more about, well, actually, we need a COO, like you said, Dale, and in the comment just there, and running them more as strategic growth businesses rather than public services. I think effectively they've been run as for a long time. Because you get a lot, and I say a lot, I don't mean everybody, right? It's again that generalization that I've fallen into the trap of doing. But a lot of accountants see themselves as a public service. They don't really like turning clients away because they're like, well, if we're not going to look after them, who is? And they take on clients that aren't necessarily a great fit for them. And you wouldn't see that. Like if you send too many returns to Amazon, they'll block your email address and you can never buy from there again, right? They don't care. They know what their ideal customer is. That's what they want. And if you fit outside of that, we're not interested. Like night and day compared to an accounting firm, right?
That's a really good point.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's like we're running a subscription business. Our product happens to be accounting. We're taking that model. I like it. Yeah.
I put up, like back when I could actually get traction on LinkedIn, right? I put this post out.
There's another hour.
Oh, there we go. And you could argue video will help with that, but it won't. I guarantee it won't.
Doesn't seem to.
It doesn't.
But I put this post out. It was a year ago, and I said, like, someone tell me if I'm talking nonsense here, but the sort of metrics that you would see in KPIs in an accounting firm around client retention, lifetime value, cost to acquire, a SaaS company would give their left arm for that. Like if you could acquire a customer and keep them as long as an accounting firm could, you would be laughing. And so that adds a little bit more weight to the idea of like, well, actually, if we ran this like a SaaS business, we would probably be a very successful SaaS business. But like you're saying, Tony, it's the service is instead of software. So what SaaS would then be software as a service or service as a software, sorry.
Who knows?
But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
It is. Can I suggest that You got a question on this one before I interrupt with quickfire round, Dal?
No, I was about to say, Tony, can you do quickfire?
Oh,
Literally.
okay. Cool.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Yeah, so we've done this one a few times recently. Dale has to mute himself because otherwise he wants to interject. So you got 10 quick fire questions from a bank that is ever growing. Are you ready, Leigh?
I will try. I am ready. I'll try to be rapid. I'll try to be interesting as well, because I may not have interesting answers to all these. I've heard some of them and they've stumped me. But
question 1: What's one skill you wish you had but you don't?
I wish that I could do layups and shoot properly in basketball. I always used to be really good at basketball. I played a lot of rugby, so on a basketball court, I could run around everyone, get to the end, could never shoot a hoop for toffee. So I'd love to be better at that.
So nothing but net. Got it.
Exactly.
Favorite country you've ever visited?
I haven't really travelled much. I went to Disneyland Paris. It was a big dream of mine to take the kids there a couple of years ago, so I'd have to say that.
Favorite country that you've never visited, or like where do you want to go the most in the world?
I really want to go to Portugal or Dubai. Those just seem to be really interesting places where a lot of stuff's happening. So I'd love to visit both of those. I always wanted to go to Australia as a kid as well. So yeah, there's a big list.
All cool places. With hindsight, what alternative career could you have pursued if you hadn't done the one you've done now?
I had a real sliding doors moment when I was about 10. Like my dad got me an Acorn Electron and I was learning how to do basic coding on that. So create little programs and stuff. I also had a Nintendo NES as well. Duck Hunt, early old school Mario. There was only one, I think it was SCART. I don't even know if it was SCART at the time. Well, there was only one connected to the telly. So it was like, which one do you want? Which one are you going to use most? And I picked Duck Hunt. And I think if I'd have stuck with the Electron and learned to code, I'd probably be a lot richer than I am now. But yeah, I probably could have been a coder if I'd have gone down that path.
Nice. What is your favorite food?
Oh, it's just bad stuff. It's just pizza and ice cream.
Together.
I'm a child. I can't get around it. I just love that. It's my comfort food.
What is your favorite workout?
Do you know what? I listened to a few of these early sessions and you guys were talking about what you could bench and stuff. And I was like, I've got no idea. I felt embarrassed. I was like, I better go to the gym. And I started.
Never be embarrassed. Sorry, I said I wouldn't interrupt, but never be embarrassed. Ever.
No, it's fine. I have no idea. But I start going out and I quite like just squats on a Smith machine, nothing advanced because it just does so many different things and it's just efficient. So yeah, doing the squats on the Smith machine and then sort of like jelly legs over to something else to do afterwards. But yeah, squats feel like they're actually doing some work, you know.
I'm the same. I just do upper body squats, or as they're also known, bench. Cool. What's your spirit animal?
I think it's a tortoise.
Mine's a
tortoise. Yeah, I tend to like duck into my little shell if I get threatened too much, and a lot of people like to talk about the fact that they're fast learners, right? I don't think I'm a fast learner. I'm a slow learner, but I'm a deep learner. So I like to learn things really, really understand them. So I take my time.
Yeah.
So rabbit and hare sort of thing. Yeah, tortoise I would go with.
Cool. The book that you have recommended the most often?
I actually bought a copy of Key Person of Influence for quite a few people and sent that to them. So that definitely is the probably the one that I recommend the most. Daniel Priestley. Great thinker.
He'd be a really cool person to get on the show. I think he might be a bit above our pay grade, given he's been on the Diary of a CEO 2 or 3 times. But still, we're not that many degrees of separation away from him because he's quite involved with people within our world. And I know. So
yeah, I'll send him a DM on LinkedIn.
Bang, there we go. Yeah, you do it, mate. You do it. Oh, that would be so cool. I really like him. I like his take. Cool. The most hated grammatical error or mispronounced word, or there might be some sort of video version of this for you, but like this is always a good question.
It's apostrophes in your.
Okay.
I hate seeing that get wrong.
Yeah.
Although it's a good. Increasingly, I wonder if I just sneak some. I do make kind of typos and grammatical errors all the time. I'm not perfect, but I do wonder sometimes. I'm thinking about sticking deliberately ones in there so people don't think that it's ChatGPT writing, because I tend to have a writing style, quite a robotic sort of writing style. I worry people think That's
the thing. People do that. Yeah, people do that.
No,
deliberately put. Yeah, they do. They deliberately put typos in so that it's not. So it looks like it's not AI.
What's interesting though is the AI will train on that, and then eventually AI
will start doing it anyway.
Come out with loads of typos.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Two left. Favorite podcast?
That would have to be Digitals in a Cruel World
Of course.
podcast from the Digital Disruptors.
Yeah, we should all recommend going to. We're all friends of the show, so go watch it. It's free for your app news. And what is this? I really like this one. What is your best ever 1 in a million trick shot? So think hole in one, that type of thing.
Oh, I don't know if I have a great one of these, to be honest with you. It's not mine. There was someone else. I'll share this one. So I had when I was 15 or 16, I went around to a girlfriend's house and they had a pool table in the middle of their front room. Crazy. And her dad was just amazing at pool. And he just did this shot where the coloured ball sort of went the length of the table and the cue ball sort of bounced back and forth and then hit the coloured ball and knocked it into the side pocket. I bounced 2 or 3 times and I was sure it was a fluke, but she said that he did it all the time. So it was just like this insane pool trick shot that apparently he could do on purpose. But I've never, ever been able to replicate it,
Wow.
or anything near that.
I had one the other day where I was loading the dishwasher, and like as you load the dishwasher, you've got the tray that comes out of the bottom and it covers up the little bit where the tab goes.
Yeah.
And I dropped the tab because I'm inherently exceptionally clumsy and drop stuff all the time, and it bounced like on the edge of the dishwasher tray, like the door on the inside, and bounced underneath the tray and landed in the hole. And I was like, I could have done that probably 100 times and I couldn't have done that again. And that was what inspired that question. So that's the end of the quickfire round. Very interesting, mate. Excellent.
There were loads of those that came out during COVID, weren't there, when the people were just at home with loads of things to do. So they'd start flicking cards at something and trying to get it stuck in there.
Yeah, like
there's a little clock next to it.
Chipping a CD into a PS5 with a golf club. Like there's people out there that make a living out of doing trick shots by doing them because inherently human brains love mixed reward outcome and unlikely outcome. Yeah. And they just post the videos on YouTube and TikTok or whatever. They get millions of views because they sit there all day just throwing paper cups at a bike tire or something and waiting for 3 of them to land in the same spot, and then go wheeling round for days, excited about the fact that they've pulled off another one. So yeah,
what a world we've created.
I know, right? I know.
Couple of questions from me. Leigh, you mentioned you've got kids. How many kids do you have?
3 kids.
Which one's your favourite?
The dog.
The dog.
Good answer. We mentioned the digital disruptors. They're doing stuff right now. What are they doing? Something important in our industry. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I might be judging it. I don't know.
We've got the Digital Disruptor Awards coming up at the end of the year. So it's on the 22nd of September, day before Accountex North. And the idea is to try and have a very authentic, very genuine take on awards. So it's not about who sponsors tables or who crosses our palms with silver. We have a bit of an arm's length approach to the nomination. So nominations are open at the moment. Anyone can nominate someone across a series of categories. Nominations close on the 18th of August.
How do I go about nominating someone?
I can share the link with you afterwards. There's a link to a Google form.
Yep.
Anyone can nominate anyone. The nominations then go to a panel of judges, which are not the digital disruptors. We have a panel, which obviously Daly were one of, independent voices throughout the space to try and pick out the people that are doing the very best work and doing things to improve our little corner of the world. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. It's a great night to celebrate people's successes and get your nominations in. And then if you want to join us, get your name on the shortlist and we'll contact you when tickets are available.
Banger. We're almost at time. Leigh, do you have any questions for Tony and I? We bombarded you. You've been very pleasant in acquiescing.
Yeah, delightful. I am really interested in knowing where this is going for you guys. What do you want to do next with the FM show?
I'd like to get some sponsorship at some point.
Okay.
It's all self-funded. It's all been fun. Our reach is growing. We're getting more and more viewers. We're getting, more and more guests coming on. We're booked up until like November for guests. So we've got people are watching, and it'd just be nice to get. I'm not saying like to buy me a new house or anything like that. Just a little sponsorship that covers the costs. I also want to get on TikTok. That's where I think it will take off because we're on YouTube at the moment and we get some pretty cool views on YouTube. Like as a clip we posted about 3 weeks ago of Tony asking me if I was drinking beer. I wasn't, and that got like 3,000 views on YouTube. I have no idea how that happened.
It's crazy what pops off on there.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
So
no real
to answer
rhyme
your
or reason.
question, yeah, some kind of sponsorship maybe.
I think
Nice.
we both really enjoy doing the show, and I think we both like to spread the reach of the show, and then like primarily just do that, and then there's then things that could help to take that reach to additional levels in terms of like, you know, we get some great guests on here, and we'd like to continue to get more great guests on here, and that comes from having great guests and spreading the reach of the show, so we can reach more people and make more people laugh and make more people think, and just generally like make this corner of the internet a good place to be.
Oh, potentially do them in person as well. That could be fun.
Yeah, we got tons of ideas we're not sure of. Yeah,
Cool.
Sounds really good.
Lee, thank you for joining us. I'm going to hit end stream. It's like a 5-second delay, so just smile for a little bit, and then, you know, because otherwise you freeze frame.